All right, you want to make sure that you avoid these 7 deadlift mistakes at all costs. And if you like skipping ahead, you might want to skip ahead to number 5 because that's probably the most counterintuitive of them all. Mistake number 1, lining up with the bar too far forward or setting the bar down with the bar too far forward. When you walk up to the bar for rep number 1, walk up so that when you're standing straight up and down, in other words, with vertical shins, your shins are about an inch away from the bar. This will place the bar over the middle of your foot. That's the strongest position to pull from. The most common error is that people will set up with the bar too far away from them. That's like holding on to a jug of milk out here as opposed to holding on to a jug of milk right here. Now, no, we're not talking about a distance of 2 feet. We're only talking about a distance, a difference of maybe an inch or 2 or 3, but we are indeed talking about a very heavy jug of milk when we're talking about the barbell, so it pays to be efficient. Set up closer than you think. Number 2, the mistake of rocking forward in the deadlift setup. This mistake usually happens during either step 2 or step 3. So it's either going to happen when you bend over to grab the bar, you kind of accidentally rock forward onto the balls of your feet, or it's going to happen when you bend your knees to bring your shins to the bar. So the kicker is when you bend over to grab the bar, if you find yourself doing this, cue yourself heels just a little bit. In other words, keep your balance toward your heels. It's an over cue. We actually just want to be mid-foot, but this over cue can be useful. Likewise, when you bring your shins to the bar, remind yourself that you are bending your knees to bring your shins to the bar or dropping your hips slightly, same thing, to bring your shins to the bar. You're not rocking forward to bring your shins to the bar. Number 3, bent wrists. You should never look in the deadlift setup like you're resting on the bar with bent wrists, because if you have bent wrists, that's probably what you're doing. So cue yourself straight wrists, long wrists, point your knuckles down at the floor, or just put a little bit of tension on the bar. In other words, before you even pull the bar off the floor, your arms should look like you're pulling on the bar. Your wrists should look like you're pulling on the bar, so your wrists should be straight. Number 4, taking too many breaths at the bottom. Remember, when you're getting set to pull, use the mantra, breath, chest, pull. Don't take a whole bunch of breaths at the bottom. The bottom of the deadlift, when the bar's sitting on the floor, is a tiring place to be. So breath, chest, pull. Keep it simple, keep it straightforward, spend as little time on the floor as possible. Mistake number 5, raising your chest prematurely or equivalently pulling around your knees. So this one is the counterintuitive one. A lot of times people have problems on the deadlift. All the time people have problems on the deadlift because they're thinking of it as a standing up exercise. In other words, kind of subconsciously, they're thinking about getting their torso as vertical as possible as soon as possible. Don't do that. If you do that, you're going to have to pull around your knees. It's a much harder deadlift. You will feel it in the back. Even though you're trying to get the back vertical, it actually causes problems for your back. So the cues for this are stay over the bar. In other words, stay horizontal longer than you think, or push the floor away, or extend or straighten your knees, or even when you're trying to deadlift, delay standing up. In other words, don't stand up. You will, of course, stand up. You will, of course, finish vertically, but don't try to get vertical right away. Number 6, letting grip be the limiting factor. So to fix this, number 1, you've got to use chalk. Don't even touch the bar without putting chalk on your hands. And of course, when you get to your work sets, chalk again, but then also use a modified grip. If you've been deadlifting longer than 1 month, let's say, you need to be either using a hook grip, a mixed grip, also known as a switch grip, or an alternate grip. Or if you really don't want to use either one of those, just use straps, but never let grip be the limiting factor. And the problem is, it will often be a limiting factor before you know it. You might not realize it, and suddenly you start using a modified grip and chalk, and the weight feels easier because you are simply being more efficient. And last, the mistake of deadlifting with a rounded back. So we need a back that is flat. We need a back that is rigid. We need a back that is an efficient transfer of force to the barbell. So if you've got a rounded back, there's a couple cues for this. You can cue yourself to squeeze the chest up. You can cue yourself to push your belly down between your thighs. You can cue yourself wrinkles in your shirt as you see those wrinkles develop along the backside of your shirt if you're recording yourself. Or here's the funny one. If you have explosive diarrhea, you better be spraying the wall, not the floor. That's a funny cue for use with high school students, but it works pretty well with adults also. So in other words, the underside of your rear end, treat it like you're trying to point that at the wall, not by raising your hips, but by simply tilting your hips. It needs to point at the wall, not the floor. Kind of a funny one, but it often works pretty well. As always, we hope these tips help you get stronger and live better.